Hey, just wanted to do a list of my favourite books that I've read in 2022. Just a disclaimer, this isn't books that were released in 2022, it's just books that I've read in the last year. At number 10, we have The Chemical Age by Frank A. von Hippel. It gives a history on the use of chemicals. It covers everything from their use in preventing famine and the unintended consequences of that, to their more malicious use in World War II. Though it dragged at times, it was a fascinating book and a fascinating topic. At 9, it's How to Stay Sane in an Age of Division by Elif Shafak. The book is quite short, under 100 pages, and the book size itself is quite small. I finished this one in a day. The content itself isn't that groundbreaking. She captures the sentiments of our often divisive and disconnected modern society. Non-fiction is often prosaic in nature, so it was nice to have something written so poetically. Poland 1939 by Roger Moorhouse is about Poland at the start of World War II. The author claims that Poland is often seen as a brief overture to World War II, rather than an integral part. He also hits back on the portrayal of the Polish as somewhat inept. What often started as Nazi propaganda has become part of the mainstream retelling of history. He accurately recounts the bravery of the Polish resistance. At 7, I've put Why We Get Sick by Benjamin Bickman. When it comes to common illnesses, this book confidently points the finger at one cause: insulin resistance. It goes very in-depth with the causes and effects of insulin resistance, along with what it is and preventative measures. It strikes a delicate balance between too much information that you get overwhelmed and not enough that you're getting handheld and don't learn as much. Books that change my lifestyle or perspective definitely get a few extra points, and this book is certainly one. It makes it easier to cut back on certain foods, not just knowing that they're bad, but knowing why they're bad. It definitely motivated me to eat healthier, and there's a handy guide at the end of foods to avoid and which ones you can indulge in. At 6, I've put The Bird Way by Jennifer Ackerman. It's great when you get a book when you can tell the author is really passionate about the subject matter. The book is divided into sections based on birds' behaviour, their talk, work, play, parenting, and thinking. It's surprising how varied each of these behaviours are across the bird kingdom. It's filled with interesting facts and it's well structured. Viral: The Search for the Origin of COVID-19 by Alina Chan and Matt Ridley. I'm surprised they didn't include lab leak in either the title or the subtitle, because this book tracks the origin of COVID-19 and shows all the evidence bolstering the lab leak theory. This book countervailed against the dismissive narrative that the lab leak theory was a worthless conspiracy theory. At the time, left-wing institutions, especially mainstream media, were quick to dismiss this argument. People were getting banned from social media for bringing up some of the evidence presented in this book. It's cool to see a once verboten opinion documented so well. It's scientific, convincing, and well written. At 4, I've put 2019's ASSAD or We Burn the Country by Sam Daggar. Now, I'd already read Destroying a Nation on the Syrian civil war, but I find this book gives a more holistic picture. It gives a lot of background into the Assad family and their relations. It documents the protests and the responses from the Assad regime to them. And it documents the proxy war elements with Russia and USA's involvement. It's really good at blending the story from individuals with the overall narrative of the Civil War. At number 3, I've read Strange Glow: The Story of Radiation by Timothy Jorgensen. This book covers so much. Everything from the discovery of radiation, its effects on our health, the history of nuclear bombs, nuclear disasters such as Fukushima or Chernobyl. Like Why We Get Sick, which I mentioned previously, it's not afraid to delve into the science. It's a dangerous line to walk. You don't want to make it too technical as to alienate some casual readers, but you don't want to dumb it down too much either. and this book hits the line perfectly. There's kind of an irrational fear associated with radiation. He compares it to the antiquated fear of electricity. It's all around us now, but we're no longer afraid of it. While it is still dangerous, obviously, understanding it better, by reading this book for example, will dispel some of that irrationality. At number 2, I've put Intellectuals and Society. It felt like a crime that I'd never read a book by Thomas Sowell, and it did not disappoint. A lot of the book revolves around the idea that a few intellects won't have as much knowledge as the collective knowledge of the masses, and the broader limitations of these intellects, and how that plays into capitalism and policy. For example, should a handful of experts decide the price of bread, or should the masses decide through millions of individual transactions? As knowledgeable as a group of experts might be, they will not have more knowledge than the collective knowledge of millions of individuals. And history evinces this idea, as price controls have had a pretty bad track record. At number 1, I've put Apocalypse Never. There's nothing better than a controversial book that triggers the left. While never denying climate change, this book hits back at environmental alarmism. It dismantles a lot of talking points that are either exaggerations or outright falsehoods used by climate change activists. It gives you the resources and knowledge to separate fact from fiction when dealing with climate change alarmism. And it was useful when I went on to read The End of Ice by Dar Kamal. In that book, he boldly claims what may be our own extinction when talking about climate change, but no experts, as Schellenberger states in Apocalypse Never, agree with that. We won't go extinct from climate change. Just a quick shout out to some of the worst books I've read during the year. As I previously mentioned, The End of Ice by Dar Jamal. There's so many audacious claims made in this book that aren't backed up by anything. It actually kind of speaks to climate change alarmism, that he talks about falling into a depression at the end, how cynical he feels. If I thought the human race would be extinct soon, I'd probably feel the same. Then there was An Edited Life by Anna Newton. Yeah, I learned nothing from this book. I like to read non-fiction by experts in their field. This book could have been written by anybody. It's just tips that work for this particular person. To be fair, I don't think I'm the target audience. I think this is written for women who like random humor and use the XD emoji.